Hi, I'm Catherine. Welcome to my making adventure. This is a video podcast where I like to share all of the crafty things that I've been up to. Today, I only have knitting to share, but I'd just be thrilled if you would come along with me. I live in the rural Midwest with my husband and our 3 daughters. And I've got a couple home with me today, so that's life. Hopefully there won't be any issues hearing me over their playing and sleeping noises. It's been a long time since I filmed like a regular podcast, but I have posted some like weekly vlogs where I share updates on my projects throughout the week. So thank you for those of you who have been watching those. Hopefully you can enjoy them. But I've been itching to like find time, to carve out time to sit down and film a regular podcast, and I'm trying to squeeze that in today. So I don't have any finished objects that I'd like to share. I think since my last regular podcast, I finished the sport weight socks I have been working on, but I shared about those on those vlogs, and I just don't want to repeat myself, nor do I desire to get them back out because they have been happily put away. So I'm going to share about my whips, and the first one, they're all at like a pretty good spot to share, so I'm excited about that. The first one is my stripe hype sweater. So here's where we're at. And as you can see, I'm getting pretty close to finishing. So let's see. This has been sharing needles with another new cast on that I have that I'll share later on. So it's been kind of like stop and go for a little bit. I've also been trying to carefully manage my yarn and make sure that I get a good fit. So since you've seen it last, I did put on the sleeves and I did all the way finish them. I was concerned that I wasn't going to have enough of this. Ginger is the color. All of this is Cascade 220 non-superwash. The pattern Stripe Hype is by Veronika Lindberg, who is Kutu Vakika on Instagram. And the pattern is designed for 1 main color and 5 contrasting colors, but I sort of modified it to be 1 main color with 3 contrasting colors because I didn't have scrap yarn to use. I purchased yarn for this. So I actually, I already had the main color. I had 4 skeins of the main color, which is not enough for a sweater quantity for me. And what I had purchased it for, I no longer felt like I didn't feel like the yarn was actually a good fit for that purchase or for that pattern. So I decided to use it as a jumping point for the stripe pipe, and I ordered 3 different colors for contrasting colors. That was to kind of like minimize the number of skeins of yarn that I had to purchase. And I think Emily from Gently Chaotic Knits, she might have had 4 contrasting colors, but she did fewer than 5 contrasting colors and made it work. And so I knew I could make it work with 3 contrasting colors. There were even some projects pages on Ravelry that only used 3 contrasting colors. And my main color was kind of a unique enough color, this like gray, tealy, bluey green, that I felt like it was kind of difficult to find good contrasting colors for it. So 3 maxed me out. So I think I had been working on the body last time I shared about it on a regular podcast, and I did add a 4th stripe of this burgundy to make the yoke a little bit, or to make the body a little bit longer. I didn't want it to be too cropped, and I have a long torso, so I knew I would need extra length, and because of the stripe pattern, it'd be a little tricky to figure out how to do that. So I added 4 stripes of the burgundy, and then follow the pattern with the 3 stripes of the yellow and the 3 stripes of the ginger. And then I paused before finishing the bottom because I didn't know I wanted to make sure I had enough yarn to do the sleeves and the neckline. And that is, the bottom is all I have left right now. So I picked up and knit the neckline next. And I'm actually thinking I'm gonna rip it out and do it again. I picked up fewer stitches than recommended, and I'm regretting that. I specifically didn't pick up 1 for 1 across this front where you cast on or across the back here, and I'm regretting that. I don't like the way that the neckline is sitting. I also feel like maybe the neckline is a little bit long. Like maybe I would knit 2 fewer rows in the main color before switching to the pop of color. So that I think I'm probably gonna rip out and do, but I have to unpick my sewn bind off, which I haven't woven in the ends just because I've been doing a lot of unpicking. So then I maybe even did that after I had done one sleeve. So I had been working the sleeves, and I think I did rip out the first sleeve and decide to add the burgundy stripe because I was concerned I wasn't gonna have enough of this ginger, but I knew that I had enough burgundy still to do 1 stripe. Then I did 3 stripes of the yellow, and then it did work out that I had enough to do 3 stripes of the ginger. And then I did half a stripe of the main color before the ribbing, and I did the yellow as the pop of color on the sleeves. So I think that this ribbing is tighter than what the pattern calls for, more of a loose cuff. So, but I didn't want that. I do not like it when my sleeves like get in my way and I can't push them up. I wanted it to be kind of tight at my wrist. So I did much more rapid decreases and many more decreases than the pattern calls for, so that I could have 48 stitches at the end. I think my last decrease is in the middle of this last stripe, and then I maintained that stitch count for the ribbing, but I switched to US 3 needles for the ribbing, and the main body is US 6 needles. Yeah, one of the reasons that I ripped the sleeve out, now I'm remembering, one of the reasons that I ripped the sleeve out also was I had knit like to my elbow, and it was still huge, like massive sleeves, and I didn't like the way all that bulk was feeling, the bulky sleeve was feeling. So I knit the first sleeve to here, and then I picked up and knit the other sleeve to try to make sure that I would have enough yarn. I wasn't sure, like I said, if I would have enough yarn to do all of the 6 sleeve stripes, 3 and 3 in the ginger color. So I stopped the first sleeve after 2. I picked up and I knit this sleeve, which was a lot faster since I had done all of the trial and error on the first sleeve. And when I got to here, I weighed my yarn and I knew that I had enough because I'd been weighing it throughout the stripes. I knew that I had enough to do 2 more of the ginger stripes. And then I finished out this sleeve, and then I went back and finished out the first sleeve. And I think in between the sleeves, I picked up the neckline. Just, not that it really matters, but so that context is there. And so now all I have to do is go back to finishing the body. I think I'm planning to do a full stripe of the main color before the ribbing. Yeah, baby? Before I start the ribbing, but I might just do a half stripe again. I haven't made up my mind. I probably should try this on one more time before. I did just finish blocking it. So I blocked the whole thing. I blocked the whole thing to see how it will fit before I decide exactly what I want for the bottom ribbing. And because I wanted to see if the neckline turned out better, and it did not. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll rip that out and fix that before I do the bottom. That would make sense. So I actually have quite a bit of main color left to finish out the bottom. I have this little bit, which is maybe like 20-25 grams, and then I have this, which I think is 40 to 50 grams. And I had purchased 2 skeins of the yellow just because I was worried about having enough. And I'm glad I did because I've used that. I had to use that for the second sleeve. But I have little bobs of yellow left, a little bit of ginger, that orange color left, and then I have some of the burgundy left, and I will use some of this for the bottom ribbing. This is the pop of color that I will use for the bottom ribbing. And yeah, I think I probably will have like 80 grams of the yellow left, but otherwise these will be fairly small amounts. And so I'm not sure what I'll use it for. It's probably enough to make a sweater for one of my kids. The hard part is I keep having like enough for like a baby sweater or a sweater for my 3-year-old, but never enough for a sweater for my 5-year-old. And I need to make her the next sweater. But I could do, because I also have almost like the same quantity of a superwash Cascade 220 yarn. So that gives me, yeah. I have projects, I have scrappy projects I can figure out what to do with. I also really loved making that, I think it's called Micah Satchel by Hanagram, that little purse that I made. We gifted that to a friend one of our friends' kid had a birthday party for when she turned 2. So we gifted that. So it might be fun to use some of my scrap yarns or my like bits and bobs to make another one, because I think it takes less than 100 grams. And they turn out really fun. So yeah, that is, I think, everything for this sweater. In case you can't tell, I don't really enjoy having a lot of scraps laying around that don't have a plan for them. Not because I don't like having them, but I don't want to feel like, I want to steward my yarn well. And so if I just like build up a lot of extras, I don't enjoy that. I want to use them well, because like yarn costs money. And so I find that like stewarding my yarn well is the same as stewarding my money well. So I love using them up, and I find a lot of joy from that. And so yeah, I think you'll see probably another project with this yarn once I've finished this one and then have a little bit of a break. Probably in the second project, the yellow will be the main color. So it will be interesting to see how they like play together in that way. Okay, next whip. I've been working on my Frankie socks. These are socks using Knit Picks Felici in the colorway Frankie, and I had 2 50-gram skeins to start. That's how Knit Picks sells this Felici yarn, is in 50-gram balls, and I purchased 2 of them. And I spilled water on my project bag this morning, so everything is wet. You can't tell though, I don't think. It's just damp now. I finished the first sock. And these socks are knit with a US 0, which is, I think, is a 2mm needle. Yeah, and this is the first pair of socks that I've knit at this small gauge. Previously, I've been using a US 1, but I had been feeling like the gauge was a little bit loose compared to what other people were having. So I did 64 stitches on the US 0. I did 3 color repeats of 2x2 rib, which was a little over 20 rounds. And then I did 6 stripes before doing, I hope she's not too loud, I'm sorry. Before doing a heel flap and heel turn. I did 18 repeats for the heel flap, which is 36 rows. I honestly wish I had done even more, like 20 to 21. Shauna from Shauna Stitches says she does quite a few, I think over 20. And I thought that's what I was going for, but when I counted when I was done, I didn't have that many. So I don't know why I decided to turn before I had 20, but that's okay. And yeah, then I just continued until I thought it was going to be long enough, and I ended up doing a wedge toe. I really liked the rounded toe that I did on my Sportway socks, but I thought that if I did a rounded toe here, it was not going to be long enough. So I kept going with the every other round decreases all the way until I had, I think, just 8 stitches on each needle to graft together at the toe. And on my second sock, I just yesterday finished the heel flap and picked up the gusset. And now it's ready for much more easy knitting. Don't look too closely, because on the gusset, I mixed up at first which place to do knit 2 together and which place to do slip slip knit. So like a few repeats in, I was like, this doesn't look right. I'm gonna switch them. So it's looking much better now. Much more defined. But it'll be okay. I wasn't going to rip it back. I don't think it matters that much in socks. So these are my Felici socks, and I haven't woven in any ends because I find that the ends help me remember how. I'm not a super confident sock knitter yet. So I was like, where do I pick up the yarn for the heel flap? And I can tell because where my end is sticking out. Where do I pick back up in the main color? I can tell because my yarn is still there. And I put stitch markers on my first decrease for the gusset and on my first decrease for the toe, so that I know where to start those. I did not count my rows for the gusset end foot because I followed the stripes. So I'll probably just follow the stripes again this time. And once I'm through this yellow stripe, it looks like that's where I'll start the decreases. Yes, you may. Can you pick up down here first though and put the lid on the Duplos, please? Okay, so that's my socks. That's been a long project. The project bag is in the dryer. And I have two other projects I've been working on. One is just a fun little dishcloth. I'll save that for the end. But this next one is really exciting. I have been following Hannah Graham and her knitting podcast for a while. She also designs children's patterns, and I've knit Micah's raglan and the Micah's satchel, which is the little purse pattern. And I've eyed others of her patterns, but she shared that she was working up a cardigan pattern, and I watched for her to release the form to apply to test knit, and I eagerly applied and was selected to test knit Ollie's classic cardigan. So this is a cardigan design for children, and I am testing the 7th size of the pattern, which is about a 4T. So this is for my 3-year-old, who also got the last sweater I knit. So when I said I need a knit for somebody other than her after this. And so it's a cardigan, and it has a garter stripe pattern, so that as you're knitting back and forth, you knit 3 out of every 4 rounds, and you only have to purl 1 out of every 4 rows, I guess. So here it is. Ta-da! I finished the first ball of yarn, so that's why it's at this stopping point. This pattern is on US 6 needles, so this is the same needle size on my stripe height, but the yarn is much thinner. This is Pearl Soho Good Wool in the color, I think, Coastline Gray. Coastline Gray. And I did get a small discount from Hannah to purchase this yarn. However, it's nothing more than like what Pearl Soho often has sales for. So if you waited and purchased on sale, you could get the same deal. The nice part is a sport weight yarn, or maybe, I mean, fairly close to fingering. It has 383 yards per 100 grams. And so one 100 gram skein got me 2 swatches and this far. And it's still, we're knitting it at a DK gauge. We're even close to a worsted gauge. I think there's like 20 stitches per 4 inches, which a lot of DK sweaters I've knit are like 21 or 22 stitches per 4 inches. So sort of a looser, even DK gauge. So you could easily use a regular DK yarn and knit the same sweater. Many of the testers are using other yarn, but this Pro Soho Good Wool, it's the first time, oh, I think my hair is messed up. Pro Soho Good Wool, this is the first time I've had opportunity to use any Pro Soho yarn, and I love the way the Good Wool feels. It reminds me of Line Brand Fisherman's Wool, which is like a worsted Aran weight yarn, just in like the squish factor of that like woolly wool. The 220 that's non-superwash, the Cascade yarn, does not squish like this. Okay, I'll be up in a minute. We're gonna pause so I can go help her. I'll be right back. Okay, so love the yarn. I think at this point in the sweater, I'm gonna put the body on hold. I have to knit several more inches in the underarm. But this is all I had left of the skein. I think I'm gonna put the body on hold and pick up and finish the sleeves and then go back and finish the body. I also think I'm gonna swipe these needles just for that short amount of time to work on that one stripe I need at the bottom of the stripe pipe. And then once I have that into the ribbing, that will use US 3 needles and I can pick up sleeves with these. And then this has a double knit button band, which I've never done before. So I'm excited for that as well. I've heard, you know, that takes a long time, that takes a lot of yarn, whatever, but I'm still really excited to try it. But I have to finish the body, obviously, first. So yeah, and the body was going really smoothly. I just felt like since I was starting a new ball of yarn, it would be good to just do the sleeves. So that's where that project is at. Again, this is a test knit. I think she's planning a fall release for this. I don't know exactly when, but the test knit isn't due for a while still. So, but I'm really pleased with the progress. This, I was here when I paused to work on my stripe pipe second sleeve, and I knit this much just in a couple days. So that's exciting. And I still have 2 skeins of yarn, so I'm sure that I will have plenty, and I'm hoping to have leftovers. I thought it would be fun to knit each of my girls one of these sweaters in different color of the Good Wool, and then to knit myself maybe like a Stria cardigan in the Good Wool, and use their leftovers as like a contrasting color. That's my big picture plan. So lots of more Good Wool in my future. I also could do the same, like knit something for my husband with Good Wool as well. But I think the next sweater, I had planned on making him like a zipper sweater, but I think that actually the next sweater I'm gonna knit for him is going to be the Finest Kind sweater by Alicia Plummer, and I think I'm gonna use Fisherman Wool, Line Brand's Fisherman Wool, to knit him one of those this fall. Probably not for Rhinebeck, because we're not going, and that's the push is to knit that sweater for Rhinebeck this year. But I think that for Christmas, I will try to make him one of those. And I'll have to decide what color to use. I have some Fisherman's Wool left over from my ranunculus, so I could knit him like the same color, or I could knit him one in like the darker brown. Fisherman's Wool doesn't have a lot of color choices, but is a very budget-friendly yarn. And yeah, I think it would be a fun project for that. But other projects first. And then my last project, the last thing I've been working on is a dishcloth but I decided to try a new style for my dishcloth, and that is copying the jelly roll blanket. I think this pattern is by K.F. Jones, the jelly roll blanket pattern. A lot of people knit jelly roll blankets with their scrap yarns, and they're really, really, really pretty. But I obviously did not want to commit to a blanket pattern without knowing how I would like the feel of knitting the pattern. So you knit, jelly roll is like a quilt term. I think like strips of quilting fabric. And so you make like strips and then you add on another strip, and that's how you knit the jelly roll blanket. So I am doing a jelly roll dishcloth. So Eunice from Therapy by Craft made a little tutorial for how to do the join, which I was grateful for, because obviously that is the most intimidating part of this. Like knitting little strips in garter is not so tricky, but joining is a little bit trickier. So I knit this one first and I joined the black one. I did notice as I was finishing the black one that there's a little bit here where I messed up, like turning, like one of the easy parts. I am going to blame that just being black yarn and hard to see what my yarn was doing as I was going. But I think that it will be okay. Like, I think I can figure out how to minimize the horrible look of it as I'm picking up the next row. I had envisioned that I would want 5 strips. It may turn out to be big enough after 4 strips of color, but we will see. I have a lot of scraps of this is from Hobie. They're Cotton Kings. And I bought like 1 or 2 packs of 20. And I have scraps from making other dishcloths left over. I don't have them all here, but these are the 2 other colors I picked to add to this one. And I'm knitting this on a US 3. So it's not on the needles. After you finish your strip, you bind it off and then you pick up again. So I have 4 ends. And I'll each strip will have 2 more ends. But these sorts of ends are slightly more secure than when you just like join in the middle. So I'm feeling better about that because this cotton yarn is really hard to weave in ends. And a few of my dishcloths have gotten holes in them and I don't know how to repair them. So I'm making new ones. So yeah, I'm hoping to work on this and get this finished so we can use it. But these needles are also the needles I need for the ribbing of the stripe pipe. So I might make 1 more strip before I need them, but we'll see, because maybe I should do the collar of the stripe pipe, in which case I need them right now. So those are my knitting projects. I haven't done any sewing, even though I have an idea of some things I want to do. I don't think I've done any crocheting, although I did finish that scrappy blanket, but I think I shared that. Yeah, that's what I've been working on. Life has been busy. The garden has been busy. My kids have not been well. One in particular has been having a really hard time the last few weeks. It seems that I feel hopeful now that we're through the worst of it, but it was a long go of it for a while. And that changed some of our plans this summer. But hopefully it will end up being okay. And we'll still be able to do the fun things that we've had to miss out on so far. I've read quite a few books, but I didn't make a list of them, and I'm not going to remember what they were without a list. Maybe I'll pause here and write down a list and then come back and talk to you about them. Okay, I think I have a decent list. of some of the books that I've read recently. The first one, I'm going to look up the authors because I didn't write those down. The first one was called I'd Rather Burn Than Bloom, and it's by Shannon C.F. Rogers. And it follows like a young woman, a teenage girl, as she goes through like a traumatic life experience, and it like redefines her. I listened to it on audiobook while I was working. It was intense at times, which is not always like relaxing, but it worked okay for like listening while I was working. It was really good. I did really, really enjoy it. The next one I read, the next list of books, I think were all recommended from Emily of Woldenburn. So like this is like Emily's list. The next one I read was Miss Bunkle's book, and that's by D.E. Stevenson, and I loved it. It was fun. It was lighthearted. It was cute. It was, yeah, just like a fun little story. And then I read Emily Fox-Seton, which is by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It's like a short book with a second book that were combined for me. So I think Emily said maybe they were originally published as two separate books, but they're often grouped together as like a part 1 and a part 2 now. Part 1 is like very cute and cozy. The second part, or the second book, is a little bit more intense and dark, but it still had like a sweet ending. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. There was a lot in the main character, Emily, of that book. There's like a lot to look up to and consider and admire about her character. And then I read a more popular, well, let me give the other one that's a recommendation from Emily of Woldenburg. And that was Dandelion Cottage by Carroll Watson Rankin. And it was so cute and cozy. It followed like 4 even like preteen girls and like their adventures over the course of a summer. And it was sweet and fun, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. Then the last book I'm going to share about that I've read was not one that I've heard Emily talk about. So the the Woldenburg Reads fan club is moving on, and I read Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine. And what a fun, crazy read. I did love it. There was lots of like feelings and in intensity to it. It didn't necessarily like wrench my heart like some books do that are like really intense. So I found it okay to typically to pick up and put down. It didn't like completely. Some books, sometimes I have the problem with a book where it gets all of my attention and I like am completely oblivious to the world around me. Have no idea that instead of being 9:30 at night, now it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Have no idea that my children are asking me for things, or that I've been sitting on the couch reading for an hour. So I try to avoid books like that right now because I'm not in a place in my life where I can have like an all-consuming book. This one didn't do that, but it was still very engaging and very fun, or like very, very good. It's been fairly popular. Yeah, so those are some of the books that I've read. I am listening to Pride and Prejudice on audiobook right now. I found I'm not like a huge audiobook person, but like I do get bored while I'm working. And so having an audiobook is really helpful. I do like listen to podcasts and other things as well. But I've read Pride and Prejudice before. I'm familiar with the story. It's fun to listen to it on audiobook. I think I might do that, like reread some of the classics that I know well on audiobook. It looks like they might be more readily available. I found like another audiobook I thought I would like, and like it was very intense and graphic and gut-wrenching, like from chapter 1. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. Especially not while I'm working. So yeah, that was a lot. I do think the two, like Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, and I'd rather burn than bloom. I think they had some language and some distasteful scenes of like not always honorary behavior. If that's not something that you're interested in reading, I will just let you know that. I didn't find that they had like too much for me. But like I'd rather Burn Than Bloom was an audiobook, so I couldn't listen to it when my children were around unless I like put my headphones in. But that was okay because I just listened to it while I worked, and that didn't, impact them. Also, this is kind of like a big update that I don't think I've shared on life, is that my 5-year-old was working through Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, and we finished it, and we were just like, yay! We wanted to, celebrate that. We made it through that milestone, and over the summer we are picking out books to read from the local library and reading them together several times until she can read them by herself. And so that's been really fun. The first book she picked out, there were only 5 words in it that she needed help with the first time. So I was like, okay, you really are almost reading independently. And that was super fun. And they were words that like she might not have even known what they meant, which is good. That's why we read, right? It helps us expand our vocabulary, and we use them as a little bit of writing practice at her request. So she practiced writing her new words so that the next time she read the book, she would recognize them. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else big that's been going on for us. I don't think so. Yeah, we had a crazy May, and now we're into June, and it's still crazy, and yeah, we're staying really busy, and that's good, but it's sometimes hard too. All right, thank you for joining me today for my Making Adventures. God bless. Bye.